The vehicle right in front of me, right here, the kind of green-gray shaped or colored balls there, that's the Russian Soyuz. And this is a vehicle that we keep docked to the space station all the time as our rescue vehicle. We actually would keep 2 of them right now because we have a 6-person crew up there. It's a 3-person vehicle. Once we retire the shuttle, this is what we will be relying on to get our astronauts to and from the space station. And we've been doing that actually for years. We send astronauts on it right now, even. And after the Columbia accident, we were once again reliant on this vehicle to get our people into space. But again, a 3-person vehicle, they sit in that lower portion. It's called the descent module. They launch on a rocket. It takes 9 minutes to get into orbit. They can get out of their seats and move up into the orbital module on top. And that's where the restroom and the kitchen are. They're in this vehicle for 2 or 3 days, catching up to the space station, and then they dock and they have a much larger area to move around in. When they're coming home, they get back into their seats, cram the top module full of any trash that doesn't need to be on the station anymore, and as they come home, they jettison that module and it will burn up on reentry. So it's a trash incinerator. So the only piece that comes back is that lower module. It's called a descent module for that reason. Parachutes will slow it and right its descent once it's through the atmosphere. 3 feet from the ground, retro rockets on the underside will fire, and that cushions the landing somewhat. So astronauts describe landing or re-entry into Soyuz as a series of explosions followed by a car wreck. So you hit going roughly 30 miles an hour. But it is actually an incredibly safe vehicle. The Russians have been using the same basic design since the 60s with very few casualties and no casualties since its early days of use. It's just robust, it's simple, it works. But you can look at this and then look at our shuttle down here and you can really see the difference between our cultural spaceflight ideas.
Have any female astronauts come back on that thing?
Yeah, several.
Okay.
Yeah, Peggy Whitson has, there's a question about if any female astronauts have come back on the Soyuz, and yes. Actually, the very last, Peggy Whitson has flown back on that. She's the one I can think of, but I know there have been others.
What did she think about it?
Oh, you ought to hear Peggy's stories. Peggy had an interesting re-entry, though. Hers was an phenomenal re-entry. That's when we had some ballistic re-entries a couple years ago. Some bolts didn't jettison the way they were supposed to. And so the vehicle came in at a bad angle and much faster than it was supposed to. But everybody was still safe. It's crazy. Everybody was still all right. That's the beauty of the Soyuz. So that's our rescue vehicle and the vehicle we'll be using once we retire shuttle. Let's move down a little bit and let these guys get in behind us. Those are the names of them. They gave them a name after a time in the order. Some can fit in together. It's not a case. We'll learn also named after. She's talking about you might come on the space station? Like one couch down the chute.
Yep, sorry.
I got blurred.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. You're sending me pictures in it, yeah. Right.
What?
Wait, never mind. Why does he give me such wonderful ideas?
All right, so we'll go down on the shuttle here, get everybody in. Yeah, go to the end. Stay all over the shuttle. Okay, you stop right there, don't go too low. This is, yes. right, so the vehicle in front of you is called the full fuselage trainer, and that is actual size. It is 122 feet long. The payload bay is 60 feet long and 15 feet around, and that's where we carry cargo. So this thing from here to back there, 60 feet long, 15 feet around. The the robot arm is docked in the payload bay. It is 50 feet long. We now carry another robot arm actually docked on this side for inspecting tile once we get into orbit. And that's a really exciting day of television, let me tell you. But as large as this vehicle is, the only portion that people actually live in is this front portion. It's called the crew compartment, and because that's where we spend most of our time training, we have additional ones. So those of you further down, you walked past them, but one right here, and there's one on the other side of the full fuselage trainer, and those are strictly just the crew compartment. But both of our crew compartment trainers can be put into a launch configuration, so we can stick them nose up. This one, closest to us, will also go nose down, so they can be moved around. Again, not really functional, it's just for learning procedures and where everything is. It's composed of two decks. There's a lower deck called a mid deck, which is where we seat 3 people for launch and for entry, and then the flight deck where we seat 4 people, including the pilot and commander, and they're the only people who have a view during launch. There are no windows on the mid deck, you're looking at lockers. The mid deck, in addition to those lockers, also has the restroom and the kitchen, and most of the crew will sleep down there as well. The commander usually will sleep in his seat or her seat on the flight deck, just in case. The controls for the robotic arm and for docking to the space station are on the flight deck facing the aft, so facing back. So they'll stand in the back to actually control